You're listening to the Fezcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fezcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Fezcast, and we're going to title this show The Green G4 Pitch of Home, which will come self-apparent as we go through the show. Part 2 of the show, I'm chatting to Alex about the women's game. Matt also got a great little interview with Poppy Cleall, who was one of the stars of the women's game. But in part 1, I'm joined by Sir Barrington of Pain. Barry is joining us to chat about the men's game on Saturday. But before that, the return of the prodigal son, Barry. First of all, how are you? And second of all, isn't it great to see Max Malin's coming back? Should never have left, should he really?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, it was interesting with Max. It wasn't one where he left for, let's say, standard reasons that players move on from clubs sometimes. So it was disappointing to see him go, but it wasn't really that much of a shock to see him come back, to be honest. But yeah, it's great to have him back, and he'll offer us some real options in the back three, and potentially as cover for an extra fly half as well. I mean, he did start as a fly half, so he's a very talented player, and we just hope he gets back from his injury sooner rather than later.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about the injury in a minute. I mean, I do remember back the video that was released from the changing room after the Premiership final when we won against Sale, and Max was obviously on his way out of the door at the end of it. But Mark McCall made a big point in that little chat to the team about how good Max had been for the club and how the door was always open. And we've always said that we never really regrets letting players go. And I don't think we did ever regret letting Max go. And I think, he's gone away and learned from a different coach. And we know that when he came back from Bristol after his loan period, both him and Ben Earl had added different things to their games from getting a bit of coaching from Pat Lam. But obviously, there was one that the door was always open for him, which I don't think is always the case for leaving players, is it?
No, not always, but it was clear that it was open for him, and as you say, Smalley said, what was it? Never say never, I think was his exact comment when asked if he could be back. So not surprised to see him back. He's had dreadful luck down at Bristol with injuries, and we just hope, as I say, we hope he can come back from those fully firing. But yeah, a great player to have around the club, a great player to have in the team, and another big character to add for next season.
Well, indeed, and I was never ever 100% certain that Max really wanted to leave Saracens, but there were other, as you said, other drivers running that decision. The injury is a particularly horrific one. I mean, I know at a far lesser stage what an Achilles injury can do for you. I've been suffering with one for a year now, not being able to run properly. A rupture of a tendon is a horrific injury. So yeah, but you would hope, and no disrespect to Bristol, but Saracens seem to have the best record of bringing back players from major injuries, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we'll have done our due diligence before bringing him back, but I've little doubt that Bristol have done everything they can to look after him and to get him fit again. It's just a shame that he won't get. I don't think he'll get the chance to pull on their shirt again as a sort of goodbye before the end of the season. But yeah, we'll have done our due diligence. I'm sure that we're confident that he'll be back and firing for next season.
Of course, it now does cause a bit of a headache. I mean, we're assuming that Goody is retiring at the end of the season. So there's one back three option closed off. But, we seem to have a profusion of young back three players, and adding to the mix Liam Williams and Elliot Daly. you would expect that probably where we were discussing maybe Liam Williams getting another contract with us at the end of this short-term contract. I'm not sure whether that's going to be the case, Barry.
Well, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes there. And talking of injuries, of course, Liam Williams was on his Instagram this week. He's had another operation, so he's going to be out for a little while, one suspects. But yeah, Goody's definitely off. He said that through the mainstream media already, so we know he's retiring at the end of the season. Might we lose another back three or winger? Well, possibly. I don't know. I mean, Elliot Daly's obviously got his versatility. He can play virtually anywhere across the backs. So yeah, I think it will be. We've got an embarrassment of riches in the back row and in the back three, I think, probably for next season. And although we're going to discuss the Prem Cup game in a minute, I thought Louis Johnson is also starting to hit his stride now, and it bodes well for the future, I think.
Well, it does indeed. And yeah, let's talk about it, because I mean, the one thing that, you do need to see, and we've been seeing it when the Daily Telegraph have got in a bat against Bath and their ability to sign just about everybody in the world to their team, how they do it with backloading contracts and whatever, which does seem a little bit dodged to me. But, I'm not the salary cap manager, and, we all know that the salary cap manager goes into Bath and gives it, and we say, by the way, we're Bath. Oh, yeah, no problem at all. Did I say that out loud? But anyway, look, that's a different podcast and a different show. But the one thing you want to see is young players coming through. And on Saturday afternoon, we sent quite a few young players, plus fringe players, plus Alex Good, who raised our average age from 19 to 46, I think, didn't he, on the day? But we said a bunch of inexperienced players, I think it's fair to say, two Quins who fully loaded their team with superstars. And that was, for me, as good a performance and result as I've seen from a Saracens team in the time I supported them. And not just last season, whatever. When you take into account everything around it, that was outstanding from Saracens yesterday, I felt, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, when Quinn scored their first try quite early, we almost thought it was going to be a case of, oh dear, this could get embarrassing and it's going to be a long afternoon. But the lads they stayed in the fight somehow. I mean, a couple of times you thought they were on the ropes in that first half, and they just found a way to stay in the fight, to score tries from distance, to keep themselves going and to keep the points ticking. And they were brilliant. It's a shame that we couldn't progress in that cup, virtually irrespective of what happened yesterday. But again, what a great omen for the future with such a young side standing toe to toe with pretty much, I think, the strongest side that Quins could have picked.
Yeah, and I think the difference there was the fact that we played on a shocking pitch. Let's just mention that first of all. I mean, we're talking about this game being in the spotlight, being highlighted as something that we want to grow, and then Quins, who spend all this money, can't put that pitch looked like it'd been ploughed in the morning, not mown. It was an awful pitch, and people moan about our G4 pitch, but at least you get an honest game every time you play on it, whereas that was ridiculous, and probably did contribute to a couple of the injuries that Quins players received, because they were running through mud. And I mean, we used to do that 30 years ago, and we used to enjoy it because that was, rugby. The difference between a rugby player and a pig is enjoyment of mud is very, 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 very small. But it's in these days and times with the technology they got and the money they could spend, it's a disgrace that they got a pitch that bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, it only looks vaguely passable in comparison with the London Scottish pitch from the week before. But it's a shame. I mean, it's difficult sometimes with these pitches and the amount of use that they get during the winter. But it can't be beyond the realms of possibility to produce a better playing surface than that, surely.
Well, absolutely not. Now, I did mention the fact that I thought the Saracens was a complete team performance. Let's give Quins a little bit of the rounds of the kitchen sink because I thought their attitude stunk a little bit. And it was typified by Tyrone Green, who appeared not to be the sharpest crayon in the colouring set when he was interviewed on the sidelines. But basically turned around and said, Quins went in that thinking it's going to be men against boys. And Alex Dombrandt, in particular, played in that way. And for 30 minutes of the first half, yeah, he was unstoppable. But he's a flat track bully. And once we worked out what they were doing, that he was not going to be playing back row and he was going to play as an auxiliary winger because he thought he was Jonah Lumu, and we double teamed on him every time he got the ball out there. We stopped him. And then, he just carried on doing what, because he just thought, oh, well, there's a bunch of kids in front of me. I'm playing against Saracens under 13s. I can run through these players. And he didn't do his job. Compare him to our number 8 and captain, Nathan Mikolo, who is vastly inexperienced in comparison to Dombrandt, but outperformed him in his core job of being a number 8. And I actually think outperformed Dombrandt in his core job of being skipper, of reading the game, understanding what was going on. And it was from Nathan that we stayed in the fight, and it was from Nathan that we made the right decisions at the right time, which Quins didn't do, which allowed us to win the game, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting with Dombrandt. I mean, as you alluded to there, he was getting all the plaudits on the TV because he was, he scored a couple of tries and he looked dangerous every time he got the ball. But that was pretty much their biggest weapon, was getting the ball to Dombrandt, and it was fairly clear that if we could stop him at source or stop the ball getting to him, they weren't going to offer much of a threat otherwise. And it was strange, really, to watch a Quins team play like that because it's a little bit un-Quins-like in a way.
Yeah, I mean, with the talent they had around the field, I don't think they needed Dombrandt to play that role. I mean, Tyrone Green came on and looked dangerous. Cassius Cleall looked dangerous when he got the ball in hand ahead of him. I think the lads they had playing in the centres, and they had talent all over the pitch. They didn't need Dombrandt to be out there busting the lines. But if Dombrandt had played as a number 8 and taken on our back row, which was pretty inexperienced, you had a second row player at blindside. You had young Maxik, who had an absolutely awesome game. We'll come back to him in a minute. And Nathan Mikolo. That wasn't a great... He could have bullied them, but he decided not to bully them and decided to bully elsewhere. And I just think that was a dereliction of his duty as a number 8. And I mean, if I'd been playing on that pitch, I would have been saying to him, excuse me, Alex, this is where you play. Do your job here. And that's where he gets lost out at international level, I think, is because when he comes up against real quality back row players, they dominate him. He can only dominate when he's on top, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, the term that you use, flat track bully, is quite appropriate, really. I feel that, but yeah, if they'd gone through the middle, I mean, everything, the pitch, the weather, the setup of the teams, everything suggested that they should go through the middle and try and tire us out and try and push us back constantly through the middle of the park, and with short carries from the rucks, but they didn't seem to want to do that, which was very odd. Perhaps it was a case of them being a little bit arrogant. Perhaps it was just a case of they thought they'd try something else, just to try and prepare them for the latter rounds of the cup. But who knows? But we'll certainly take the win all day.
Yeah, we will do. Now, what we do need to talk about is the Prem Cup. Now, we've alluded to it there. Quins went full-bodied on that. I'm not sure whether that's really in the spirit of the Prem Cup. And certainly if you were England and you were saying that Alex Dombrandt, for instance, is a fringe England player, do you want him turning out in the Prem Cup when you might need him later on in the Six Nations with the potential of getting an injury in not a meaningless competition, but a competition that is designed for what Saracens have done? And Smalley was very keen to point that out in the week, and Rob Webber did it on commentary. This isn't necessarily about winning the tournament, although you want to win the tournament. And of course, you go into a tournament wanting to win it. But it's about developing players, and we've done that. And I mean, what have Quins learned from that game? That their top players aren't perhaps as good as they are. So, you know, it's for player development, but also it's for referee development. And it's quite interesting that the referee yesterday, I think he'll learn an awful lot from that game, because I don't think he had his best game, although he didn't have a bad game. But there were a couple of things where, you know, he missed out on things. And I don't know whether David Rose who was TMO, should have been a bit more firm with him, particularly on the Cassius Cleall's red card that should have been a red card that was a yellow card.
Yeah, very hard to see how he came to the low degree of danger decision on that, because Cassius Cleaves was going forward. He had a clear line of sight to what was happening. It was a dominant collision, and it was very, very upright. So other refs would have given it a red card, I'm sure. I don't suppose it will be looked at again during the week. Now now he was yellow carded, so we'll just have to leave it there. But yeah, I mean, going back to the referee, he didn't have the worst of games, but his positioning seemed to be a bit strange. A couple of times, there was a try in the second half, I think it was one of ours, where he didn't know the ball had been grounded, and there was a good 3 or 4 seconds while he desperately tried to get the right side of the ball to see the grounding, and a few times his positioning looked a bit odd to me, and I think, as you say, he'll no doubt learn from that.
Yeah, he will do indeed. And I mean, I do think that the funniest comment made on WhatsApp was from yourself, Barry, when they were checking on Tobias Elliott's brilliant try. I mean, he read that fantastically to take that intercept from Jared Evans's pass and sprinted away. But you see, you said the TMO's looking back to see whether Cassius Cleave's hamstring injury is a penalty against us or something, was there?
Yeah, something like that. There was I couldn't actually hear, but there was a conversation. They were clearly checking something in the background. But yeah, it did almost seem at one point like everything we did was was turning into a penalty against us. And then when Quins did exactly the same, it was look the other way time.
Well, indeed, and that came from Max Eek getting a yellow card for, I thought, a brilliant piece of play. He got back, made a tackle, got to his feet, stood strong, and then another player's come in, won the ball perfectly legally, and he got yellow carded for it. Then the ref, in a great piece of consistency, same thing happened on the other end where a Saracens player got tackled and a player got to his feet, went for the ball, penalty against us, and the referee's gone, that's exactly the same as the other end, and then never gave a yellow card for it. And I just thought, well, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, the only real difference between those two, I think, was the fact that the Quins one was a line break, and I suppose you could argue from there that it's a cynical foul, albeit we don't really think it was a foul. And even on co-coms, Ben Kay said that looks incredibly harsh to me, because I can't see what else he's supposed to do there.
No, but we mentioned Max Eek, and we are mentioning young players, and I say Nathan Mikolo in the back row, Harry Wilson, who got a yellow card, and I'm not really sure how that was yellow card. Penalty, yeah, but I mean, that was a bit of nothing. But Max Eek had a fantastic game, and I know Tobias Elliott got player of the match to that game from the commentators, and I was surprised they still never gave it to Alex Dombrant, but there you go, because they would blow so much smoke up his backside. But Max Eek, I thought, really had a fantastic game. In the 2 or 3 games he's played now for the senior side, he has really, really impressed me. And then there's another open side coming in off of the conveyor belt, it seems, at the moment.
Yeah, we are blessed with back row players at the moment, and Max is going to have to wait and perhaps be a little bit patient, but to have 2 players who can play that role so well is going to be really, really good.
Yeah. Now, the other player I want to mention, who came on as a substitute as well before we finished this section, was a young lad comes on the wing, somebody that me and Duncan watched play for Ampthill a few weeks ago, and really, really impressed there. Jack Bracken came on and scored an absolute worldie of a try, didn't he? And I think I always remember a friend of mine who used to play rugby with, who was second row. He was 6'6", but he's about 11 stone dripping wet, and he couldn't get any weight on him. And he went and joined the Royal Marines, and they put him on a bag of chips and 2 pints of Guinness a day diet. and he came back about 17 stone. Jack Bracken, if he puts on a bit of weight and a bit of muscle as he matures, because I mean he's only a young kid still, he's going to be one hell of a beast, isn't he? I mean that was a great try.
Yeah, I mean when he got the ball, you thought, oh great, we've got it to the winger in space. Oh, hang on a minute, the winger's on one of the under-14 side by the looks of it. But he had no right to score that try, and it was just sheer bloody mindedness, I think, that propelled him over the line. But what a fantastic cameo, and we thought Charlie Bracken was good, and he was again yesterday. But Jack looks an even better prospect, I think, based on his little cameo yesterday.
Oh yeah, speed, ability, good looks. Oh, he's got everything, hasn't he? I mean,
he's the exact opposite of us.
Yeah, I know. Mind you, when your dad's Kieran Bracken, you kind of like, he'll be a heartthrob for the young girls, which will be great, and young boys maybe. You never know. But I mean, he's certainly. I think he's got star quality written all over him, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He's another one who's got a bright future ahead of him, hopefully with us.
Indeed. Well, I mean, the one thing though to say is that most of these players now have got about 3.5 months off, haven't they? Because we're out of the Prem Cup, we're not in the quarterfinals, so and the Premiership doesn't kick back off until we have. I think the next game for us is Quins at the Tottenham Stadium, isn't it? So we've got a good long period of time off. I'd have seen quite a few of these players. Pierce Paul played, didn't he, as well? We'll probably roll up at Ampthill for a couple of weeks to keep their hand in. But the rest of the team, I mean, what do you do, Barry? Let's put you in the shoes of Smalley. You're going to take them all away for a couple of weeks, somewhere nice, but get some sun on the back. That'd be a nice idea, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I think a week in the sun would probably do a lot of those players, and some of the ones that were rested at the weekend. Alex Wazowski and Ivan Van Zel. It will do them good to get out and maybe have a week's downtime before coming back and preparing for the showdown, which is, I think, 5 weeks away now, or 4.5 by the time
4.5 weeks. Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, hopefully I've got something special lined up for the Fezcast in the week before the showdown, which would be good if that comes off. I've got to speak to Wally next week and make sure that's all tickety-boo and under control. And I'm actually hoping to have a chat with Wally as well about back office stuff, which, it was good when Matt talked to Harry Scott Monrover. So I'm throwing that out there now, Wally, so you can't get out of it, mate. Well, look, Barry, thank you for your time this morning. I think we've covered Max Malins and the men's game quite well there and everything. And as I say, we'll look forward to working out what we're going to do for the next few weeks on the men's side. I think we'll concentrate on the women's side, which is what we're going to do after this break. Is I'm going to have a chat with Alex about the women's game against Chiefs at StoneX on the green G4 pitch at home. And also Matt's got an interview with Poppy. But until then, Barry, I'll say thanks a lot for your time. And I'll see you with Alex and Matt and Poppy at the other side of this break.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association. And I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the StoneX.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back. Alex is joining us. Hi, Alex. Have you warmed up after yesterday's game yet?
I think I have. Yeah, it was very cold.
Well, it was a good game, wasn't it? I mean, the blood, thunder and guts being spilled everywhere, perhaps more so than skills on show maybe at places. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely the wind and the rain played a part in it yesterday. The conditions were not great, so a lot of drop balls.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, shall we do what did happen yesterday at the game was because Matt was also at the game yesterday, Alex, with you. And after the game, he got the chance to have a quick chat with Poppy Cleall. So shall we play that interview in now? Have a listen to what Matt and Poppy had to say, and then we'll go into the game in a bit more depth after that.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hi, Alex Osterbury here, Director of Rugby for Saracens Women. You're listening to the Saracens Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Okay, so is that coming out all right? Yeah, we're good. Okay. So our post-match interview on the Fezcast this week, I've got Poppy Cleall with me. Poppy, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Bit of a battle out there today, I think that's fair to say. But yeah, coming out with a victory, how are you feeling?
Yeah, no, it was a huge battle, and I said previously, they came here fighting for their season. They were going to throw the kitchen sink at us. We've had many battles with them, and to be put it frankly, they sort of embarrassed us down at Sandy Park in the early part of the season. And I think it was round 5. It kind of unsettled our season, and we went and lost a few games straight afterwards, and we needed to get back in control and in control of our destiny. And I think we've got that. We go into the last week with knowing that 5 points will get us the home semi back here. So it was sort of a great turnaround from us, and we're sort of fighters. We get in those moments and we dig deep, and I think that's come to the forefront again.
Absolutely. Well, we saw Rosie Gowling certainly enjoying a cover on the floor towards the end of the game, but I think it was a case today of in a way of good defence can win you a game, right?
Yeah, we've got to be comfortable without the ball as well as with it. Against top sides, they're going to keep the ball, make less mistakes, and you've got to know and be really confident about your D that we can go smash them back, win the gain line, win the collisions, and we were guilty of losing a few collisions and letting them get on top. But I think overall, we sort of got that right, whether we were dipping into the breakdowns or not, or we're filling the fields. And it's a learning, and sometimes we get it a little bit wrong, give away a few penalties. But I think there's a sort of a beauty in getting being a team that can give away a few penalties, but then the next thing we do is we go turn the ball over. The next thing we do is a great decision. The problem is when you go back to back to back and you march them down the field, and you might as well come on, let's go welcome into our 22. So there's some moments where it's not a disaster if you give away the penalty, but there's others where we've got to be a bit better, a bit smarter, and just sharpen up a bit.
No, that's fair enough. But also, certainly the first half, solid in attack. It was pointed out that 3 times in there, 22 and 3 tries, which ultimately won us the game.
Yeah, exactly. They had the better start. The first 10 minutes, they were sort of all over us. I don't think if there's a TMA, I'm not going to lie, I don't think they try with a counter because it was a bit short of the line. But, we're not here to judge. So I think, they started well, and all credit to them. We had to defend, and then when we get in their 22, take the chances. And I think we did that. And I think we then wrestled control of that whole first half. We got control of the ball, control of the possession. They coughed up the ball a few times a bit easily, so we got in charge. And I think the second half we'll be a bit disappointed with is in we should have put them away.
That's fair.
We should have scored a few more tries. I should have finished off my chip and chase, but I've only got one highlight reel this year. I don't need another.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, obviously, as you mentioned, it's 3 wins us the title. But just from a personal standpoint, how are you feeling about your season? Obviously, you look at you've been in and out of the England side over the last year or so, but you seem to be playing at another level with your game at the moment. Are you confident going into the back end of the season, potentially the international fixtures going forward?
Yeah, 100% confident here at Sarries. I think that what the team's doing and the team around, we've got a really good thing going on. We're really confident going into the last 3 games, hopefully. So for me personally, just getting my head down and enjoying the rugby and sort of adding value here. I want to make sure that as I go through the latter stages of my career, I'm just always adding value. And I think I'm still doing that here. Yeah. So I'll still be rolling out.
Perfect. Well, best of luck for the last couple of games of the season. It's obviously going to be home fixtures all the way through now, hopefully, as long as next week goes well. And more tries, more of the same from you. That'd be fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Poppy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Petrus Duplessis, and you are listening to the Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, yeah, great little interview there, Matt and Poppy. He's doing really well in getting these interviews with the girls, isn't he? Absolute thing. But what came out from Poppy's comments there, Alex, was that it was a tough match, but also there was a bit of a driver there. I think we saw it. There was a bit of niggle throughout the game, wasn't there, between the teams? But obviously that result earlier on in the season at Sandy Park still sticks in the craw a little bit. And yes, they went some way to redressing that balance, I think.
Yeah, and I think Exeter knew they had to win this game if they wanted to have any chance of getting top four. And we knew we had to win it in order to get a home semi. So I think both teams, there was a lot of pressure going into the game. And I think we managed that really well. We didn't let that kind of overwhelm us. Even when Exeter scored first, we kind of just kept going, kept doing our thing, and eventually that paid off.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is true. I mean, I think watching it on the YouTube coverage, Exeter just flew into that game, didn't they? They went out at 100 mile an hour. And, you know, there was a point when they scored that first try where I was a bit concerned, thinking, is this going to be one of those games where, you know, in a season where results haven't been consistently good, was this going to be another one where perhaps pressure got to us? But you're right. A few people stepped up, didn't they? And I mean, let's talk about it. Poppy Cleall, I think what really did spark the team into life was that huge hit she put in. I mean, I look at Poppy Cleall, I would sidestep out of the way of any tackle she made. And I mean, the poor girl who got hit by had no chance this year. She was driven back. But that seemed to really lift the team and inspire me. It woke Marley Packer up a bit, who then went on, got a player of the match performance from Rocky Clark on commentary. Did an absolutely brilliant job. But yeah, that hit was big, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think we kind of needed something just to kind of spark us into life and get us going. And then once that happened, we just scored 3 tries and Exeter couldn't really come back from that.
No, they couldn't, could they? And I mean, I think that's the point that Poppy also made, although I hate this. When she said they had the confidence in their D. What's wrong with saying defence, Alex? What's wrong with the English language?
I don't know. They kind of seem to like shortening everything.
They do indeed, but the defence was the one thing that you looked at, other than Claudia McDonald's try in the second half, which came after a blatant piece of obstruction from the Exeter slow runners back that stopped the initial tackle going in. But you know, defence was really, really solid, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think Sophie Bridger also put in a solid piece of defence, kind of in the centres. She was really good, making some dominant tackles. So I think that was really good just across the board. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing, which really helped.
And May Campbell getting a couple of key turnovers at key times in key areas of the pitch as well.
Yeah, and I think she switched from hooker to back row halfway through the game. It didn't seem to affect her at all. She just kept doing what she was doing and managed to get a try as well, which is good.
Well, I'm interested you talked about back row, because there's one player that I really wanted to pick out who I thought had an exceptionally good game. And, you know, perhaps doesn't gain the headlines that other bigger players in the back row do. But Georgia Evans had an amazing game on the blind side, I thought. She made a couple of real good defence bursting runs. She made some big hits. She was useful as ever in the line out. I mean, she was a solid line out target all afternoon in very trying conditions. She had an amazing game, didn't she?
Yeah, I think her work in the build up to Poppy's try was really good. And I just think across the field, she was kind of doing what she needed to do. And I think, as she said, she doesn't always get the headlines, but sometimes that's one of your better players because they're just consistently good.
Yeah, and we talked about that, didn't we, in the first part, me and Barry, when we looked at Alex Donbrandt versus Nathan Michelo, you know, the difference between getting on with your job and being flashy. Georgia just does get on with her job and doesn't need to be flashy, but she just puts in the hard work. And I think a lot of particularly Saracens' defence sparks off of those players who do put themselves about in that way.
Yeah, and I think also kind of everyone just seemed to like level up and step up and go, this is what I need to do today to get a home semi, and it just worked really well.
It did, didn't it? Now, one thing I will say at the end of the game, and I don't know how you felt about this, Alex, I just felt the second half was a bit of a damp squib, really. I mean, 21 points scored in the first half. Saracens didn't score anything second half. Now, there were a couple of possibilities there that if the luck had gone a different way. I mean, how many times have you seen players chasing after a bobbling ball only for it to bobble up into hand? Sophie Bridger takes an air shot out 3 times and completely misses when it seemed almost easier to score the try, unfortunately. Probably Cleall, she talks about in her interview, that little chip over the top where she's just doing poppy things that no other player in the world can do. But it was a bit of a disappointment. And I don't know where the attack went in the second half because it didn't quite spark, did it? Was that conditions, do you think? Was it the fact that the ball was a bit greasy and, when you went through too many phases, the probability was that something might, give at some point?
I think it was partly conditions because it was raining, so the ball would have been wet and that makes it much harder. But I also just think we kind of knew we were 14 points ahead and we didn't seem to have the urgency we had in the first half to score. And X didn't score till so late in the game for their second try that we never really had that, we need to score to ensure we win. It was kind of, we have this already. So I think that's definitely something to look at going into next week and into the semis.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Because the one thing you really wanted, if you scored 3 tries first half, the bonus point really should be a given, shouldn't it? And it wasn't for the reason that we just didn't seem to get on top of the game in the second half in attack, and that's a little bit disappointing, isn't it? Because that bonus point could still be key at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right if we don't have the bonus point because we need, as long as we win against Sale, and then we will get a home semi. But I think we should always be going out there with the intention of trying to get the bonus point because in other matches or in other seasons, that could be crucial.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. Well, we'll look at the league table before we finish, but I just wanted to mention a couple of players who were returning from injury and 2 big names. Zoe Harrison's only been out for a couple of weeks. She had that little bit of a shoulder knock. Before she came in, Rocky Clark mentioned her having a good game. I'm not entirely certain whether she had a 100% good game. There were moments when she made little errors, but I think that's fair comment when you are coming back from injury and a little bit rusty. She was great off the tee, though, 100% record off the tee, and they weren't easy kicks in difficult conditions. So, her place in the team was worthy for that. The one who was back, though, was the Jess Express at fullback, Jess Breach. Great to see her back, but she was a bit rusty, wasn't she? She made a few errors. She didn't really look entirely up to full pace, but that's to be expected after, 6 months out, is it?
Yeah, and I think she was definitely better in defence than she was in attack. She definitely had a couple of knock-ons, kind of not quite clicking with the team, but in defence she definitely put in some good hits. So I think, I just think it's a matter of kind of reintegrating with the team after being out for so long, and hopefully she'll be better against Sale and then going into the semis.
Yeah, well, hopefully so. And yeah, it does look very much like a home semi, which would be good. I was looking at the league at the moment. Is it Gloucester have got 2 games to play as we're talking on Sunday morning with 58 points. We've got 1 game to play, 57. Quins have got 1 game to play, 55. And Bristol Bears have finished their season, haven't they, now with 53. So it's looking very much like a home semi-final against Quins, as Harry Scott Munro was a concern that might happen on last week's show.
Yeah, and I think it should be good. As long as we win against Sale, then we'll get a home semi. And it's good that it's within our control. We're not relying on any other matches. So hopefully that'll be a good game.
Yeah, and I think it's important to get that home semi-final as well and get the home semi-final against Quins. No disrespect to Quins whatsoever. But Bristol Bears have suddenly woken up, haven't they? And they certainly seem like the team, and we saw it last year when they came to Stonex in the semi-final and turned us over. They're gaining momentum at the right time as well as Saracens are, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think it will be good to have, if there's 2 derbies, because you get more away fans. And it helps both teams. So even if we go to Quinn, then more Saracens fans are more likely to go than if we were going away to Gloucester or Bristol. So I think that will really help.
Yeah, it will do indeed. Well, that's all to look forward to. And as I say, well, as we always do, Alex, we urge everybody to get along to the games. And if there's a home semi-final, I'm sure the club will be pretty quick in getting details out how to get along to that game. But I'll say, yeah, let's get along and support them. As I say, could be 3 home matches with a trophy at the end of it now, couldn't it, Alex? That's what we got to aim for. That's what we got to look forward to. Well, Alex, thank you for your time this morning. And I say thank you to Barry as well for his time earlier this morning talking about the men's game and everything around that. And say thank you to everybody listening in. I'm away now. I'm not sure whether I'll be in charge next week or whether Matt will be back in charge. It's my birthday on Thursday, which is tomorrow as you're listening to it. So I might well have had a few beers over the weekend, Alex. I don't know. But that's all to look forward to. But I say thank you, everybody, for listening into the Fezcast. And we'll speak to you again next week.
This is the Fezcast.